people that manage money that I admire are the venture capitalists. They're the ones out in California that would take the gleam of the eye and back their money, not they had very little leverage at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I think that's a critical point.
No, I didn't mean to eliminate
They're investing in
venture.
manufacturing.
Not to eliminate it, but to
jobs.
separate it from the basic economy of the world.
I think venture capitalism, that's a fundamental of capitalism. People that have the resources and the imagination to listen to the creative engineers that have come up with a Microsoft.
Very good, very good. One thing, clear it up.
Yes,
That's a real investment house.
Yeah, but that's important. The speculator then is not a quencher, seems to be.
In simple terms, a speculator is trying to make money on money.
Yeah, well, on finance guy. Okay.
He's not creating any jobs.
Yeah, okay.
Just totally
Other
gambling schemes.
The money changers.
Young graduates of the best schools because they're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars a couple of years out of school and keeping all those hot young people from doing important things to do. Things that we could do with the economy. There's $2 trillion of infrastructure overdue. It's hard to pick up a magazine, but they don't remind you that we aren't fixing the bridges, we're not fixing the water system, we're not fixing the schools. $2 trillion is overdue. At the same time, there's about $3 trillion waiting to get invested. That's the money that's sitting on the sidelines. But that money, that's the money that didn't go on out into the economy in R&D and building plants and making jobs. So we've got tons of pension money over here. So we've got trillions of needs of infrastructure over here. And wouldn't you think we'd be smart enough as a society to figure how to couple those at low cost? And the government has begun to do it. I'll mention two examples and then finish. The government is subsidizing, I forget the name of it, but it's a new bond. It's got a 7% interest and it's being given to the states and the cities for infrastructure work. But they subsidize it so the states probably pay for 100%, 7%. And the same article that described how this was a useful thing to create jobs at the city and the state level said that Wall Street has already earned over $1 billion in fees. And I'm trying to figure out, you've got the infrastructure need here, you get the pension money looking for a risk-free investment. The people who got killed on their pension money, they'd be delighted to get a 7%. If somebody want to make it tax-free, they go wild. You know, they think they hit the happy land. But here's a need and here's a supply, and we're still putting $1 billion into money handlers. But I also read within the last few days an example of I'm writing an article, whether I put it on my website or not, but many of these things are on my website. My card is on.
Yeah, we got his card so you can take it.
And there are articles on Smith and Parks and Mill and many others, and I promise you each article is under 800 words, so if you're curious, I hope that you would visit that. And this whole thing that happened to ERISA in Article number 13. The article I'm working on right now, if it survives, the title is Fire Wall Street and Move Your Money. That's not totally original because some people with retirement money are beginning to wake up to understand that it is their money. It is their money. What are their rights with the money managers? What are their rights with the politicians? So I think we have an incipient opportunity. And I was delighted to read that the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund had just beat a private equity company to buy a company. And they said, well, what's the difference? Private equity would be Goldman Sachs and Bain consulting, buying Burger King, $30 million fee at the beginning, large management fees. They leverage the balance sheet for hundreds of millions of dollars, pay themselves a special dividend. Do they take it public again, pay 3 times what they spent to begin, and talk about insult and injury, then charge them $30 million for termination consulting fee. That's what private equity does. That's just like every other deal. They're either acquire and fire, which is a deal, or the buy it, strip it, flip it, which is the private equity. But the Ontario teachers, that's not what they're involved in. They are taking patient capital, capital that is looking for a return in what, 5, 8, 10 years. And that's what economies survive on, and that's what economies grow on. So here's an example of a teachers' union in Canada. Taught us a lot of things. The banks avoided most of the crazy stuff that we did. But here's a teachers' pension fund buying companies. And in that same article, they said that CalPERS, and as CalPERS goes, so goes the pension industry, and by far the biggest in California. But I have a lot of work going on with Rikers, and I emailed them today and gave them the article and asked them, and all the professors know what TI Federal Office is located here in New York, and that has all the professors' pension money. I said, don't you have an association? Can't you get your professors' association and start building on this momentum? So to conclude, I think, like Adam Smith, that economic freedom to feed, clothe, shelter, educate, and provide good health for people in the world. I'm personally convinced that economic common purpose can raise the standard of living and lower the violence to the point that the subtitle of my book, Democratic Capitalism, is no, it's not a contradiction. No, it's not an oxymoron. It's a very carefully thought out combination of benefits of different parts of the system. And the subtitle, which is The Way to a World of Peace and Plenty. The book was published in 2004, and I'm more certain that democratic capitalism is the way to a world of peace and plenty, and implied in that is the world of peace and plenty is available if we all get at it and understand the components of this and make our voices known for the money managers and the politicians.
Hear, hear.
Thank you very much for
Thank you for the work. Keep it up, sir.
I'm just curious on a practical example of how this would relate to the healthcare issue that's being discussed. How would you apply your principles to that issue?
I have a very squirrely answer.
Squirrely.
Yeah. Personally, if you line up the functions of government, most people would agree that economic opportunity has to be one of them. Most people would agree that education has to be one of them. And I think most people would agree that good health has to be one of them. There's not much point in economic opportunity and other things if you're not in good health. The question is, how do you attain it? Personally, I think you can get the health benefits with free market ways, but
Yeah.
we're too far down the road, and the environment in Congress was so bad. I'm personally an admirer of Obama. I was disappointed with his lack of progress, but I think Denise and I, we have important conferences over coffee in the morning. I forget to take notes, forcibly. But I think our feeling was that he tried the consensus approach, and he stuck it in his eye, and
Exactly.
Now he's, very more forceful, so I think it's a start. I think they covered quite a few people, and I hopefully, but not until there's some cohesion in Congress, and I think the people will respond in the elections. But by the time the election comes around, my feeling is that they're so fed up with this lack of cooperation that anybody that can fit that definition may have a hard time. So I think the citizens are going to, in due time, it might not happen this year or next. But so I can't give you a good answer to that. I think it's an important, imperfect document. How imperfect, I don't know, but I think it moves the ball down the field, and hopefully will build some positive momentum that other people will add to in time. But I have a friend, Reggie Herslinger, who's a professor at Harvard Business School. She's written about 8 books. They all practically have the same kind of market-driven healthcare. But if they've got everybody covered, they're going to begin to proliferate more of those. You'll walk in and get some treatment specialization, whether it's getting glasses for your eyes or getting something checked in your ears.
The amount of money being spent by the lobbyists of the insurance companies is unspeakable. There's no end.
On the healthcare front, would you say that the insurance companies are analogous to, the banks on Wall Street? They're pretty much just money changers in the equation. So do you think there will ever be, a sustainable system as long as you have, insurance companies as big as they are at first, but insurance companies at all?
I don't know if they have, as often as described, prevented people from getting insurance, kicking people out of insurance. I'd have a hard time saying that they weren't acting just like Wall Street. So, but
Well, they're kind of an extension of Wall Street.
that one is so complicated that I was working on firing Wall Street today. I haven't studied the healthcare as much as some of you have. I think the point is well taken. The function that you would think they would be proudly fulfilling, they don't.
See, that's where I have a problem, understanding democratic capitalism. From all I understand from your lecture, you're not an authority on Adam Smith, you're trying to moralize, demoralize capitalism.
Capitalism is not a generic. Have you been listening all night?
Yeah, no, my difficulty
If
is...
anything I've said, don't treat capitalism as a generic. Capitalism is a form that has so many conflicting types. Some of them, the answer, the way to a world of peace and plenty. Others that have caused this incredible unnecessary disaster.
Can I just say, in other words, it's okay to make a profit, but how? What's the system? It's capitalism, but what's the system within the system? I mean, people think of capitalism as a system, but the system has to be regulated. Otherwise, it's just craziness. Anyone can do anything they want as long as they can just lie about it long enough and fast enough to get away with it.
I'm a
You have
big
to apply
fan
rules.
of Adam Smith. And
Speak up, honey, if you can, Ruth.
I'm a big fan of
Thank
Adam
you.
Smith, and I hate to hear him slapped around and things opposite of what he said or meant used. The best way of judging profitableness was you were more likely to be profitable the larger the group cooperating in a particular thing. His example was a person making pins.
Right.
Maybe one person could make one pin, but a group organized, making pins together might be able to make 1,000 pins, and a few people in a machine could make 1,000,000 pins. But this took cooperation, and the creation of the machines took cooperation, and the thing that guaranteed may be the wrong word, the profit before Marx took over with profit equals theft. But when profit actually meant increase, the number of people cooperating to create an endeavor was what brought the profit.
You're quite right. The productivity increases with
Cooperation.
What did I say that offended you? Well, Adam Smith saw the productivity as you described it, and that was why we optimistically said there's no reason for people not to have enough food for each other if the system keep producing. And Marx later said, yes, I'll confirm what Adam Smith says, there's enough productivity to feed, clothe, shelter, educate, and provide good health for everybody, but you can't do it if the wealth is concentrated. You can't get there.
His system made so there was advantage to being honest and for people to be able to trust each other. And that was, eliminated as quick as they could manage.
If you don't like capitalism, what do you prefer?
Well, my understanding is about how as a whole. See, you have a vast country here when the Europeans came and took over. There was a lot of natural resources, free and available. So when people came to this country, so there is it's okay to flourish the capitalism in the sense of Adam Smith. Whereas Marx, he addressed all these countries where particularly populated with historical origins, people were deprived. He had Russia in his view. He had all these other countries in his view. So the people weighed more. The labor weighed more. Whereas for Adam Smith, the capital weighed more. So one is the thesis, another one is the counter-thesis. Both are economic thesis. They are both are economic theories. So it depends on which country where you are coming from. So if I'm coming from America, I'm a capitalist. If I'm coming from China, India, or Russia, I would prefer kind of a socialism, where a few people will control the whole.
The method is absolutely clear. By socialism, if you mean central planning, doesn't work. There aren't people smart enough to central plan an economy of any size. You have to decentralize to the companies, give them the freedom to do their thing. And you can do that either in an authoritarian forcibly. That's something we discovered from the success of your country, in China, that they had taken 1 million people out of abject poverty in a decade.
Well, before Europeans or America knew what is mercantilism, there was mercantilism in India.
No question.
There was mercantilism in China. They have traded and
This is all the reason I emphasize it. It's all recent development that I think we should all take heart to see the number of countries with different political structures getting imperfect as it may be, but getting forms of economic freedom and improving the lives of millions and millions of people. But yes, sir.
Well, I would take question with China, for instance, because the Yangtze River used to flow to the ocean, and now it doesn't flow to the ocean anymore. It's completely dry at the eastern end of China. So they over-industrialized, and they're using the water from the Yangtze and other rivers to run their factories and do their intensive agriculture. So how do you deal with the environmental consequences of industrial agriculture, industrialization in itself. The other thing I'd like to point out is, what would you say is the most dynamic social, economic change in the United States in the 20th century? What's the biggest change that do you see?
Give you a couple of good ones.
Yeah, well, handle them one at a time.
As you gather, I'm optimistic that the Chinese understand their environmental problems in due time, and they'll figure out, like some other people, how you make money on the green forces. I get reminded regularly, and my wife takes that how terrible the environment is. You told me something I didn't know about the ancient river. I think they are planning for the very long term, and we've already seen some moves, and I think still authoritarian, and we've already seen some moves that they are sensitive to their responsibilities. And as we all know, the part of the environmental problem is man-made. We all know where most of that comes from. And the statistics are scary, that if everybody in China has the standard of living we do and buys one automobile or three automobiles, we're in real trouble. So I don't know what the the most, give me a second question.
Okay, what do you think is the most dynamic change in the United States? We'll just take the United States in the 20th century in terms of the economy, in terms of the way people live. I already, obviously I already have an answer for that, but I want to see what your opinion is.
You won't even give me a hint.
I'll give you my answer, but what's yours?
In terms of the future, I think the most important event is that the technological progress that brought us the Industrial Revolution and the ability to make thousands of pins also at the same time demean the individual. It was pretty boring making pins. But the information age has brought forth a whole new work culture where I might have thought that the right work culture for old companies was democratic capitalism, but the technology has taken us to the point of where their only resource is the cognitive power of their people. The only way you release the cognitive power of your people is to have a democratic work culture where they really feel that they're participating and contributing. I think in terms of where we're going in the next 100 years, I think that's a critical change. For the first time, the benign work culture is a competitive necessity. All right, now what was your answer?
Yeah, what was yours, Chris?
Well,
Rachel
I am convinced that the most dynamic and tragic, really, change in the United States in terms of the way people live is bringing them off the farm. In 1900, 85% of the American populace farmed.
Right.
Now it's about 4%, if that. That's dramatic. That's an incredible siphoning off of intelligence and land use and people's ability to sustain their own communities, fairly small communities, into big cities.
That was Thomas Jefferson's idea.
Yeah.
Exactly. The citizen farmer. So I think that's an amazing change, and we're stuck with it now. And and every day at the UN they discuss land reform in the third world. They never discuss land reform here in the United States. We could go back to farming if we just had the will to do that and not be brainwashed and mollified by television and pursuits that really are
We're pretty kind to some farmers. The United States subsidizes cotton, Europe subsidizes sugar, Japan subsidizes rice, and the combination is hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars, and the consumer is screwed, but worse than that, the farmer in the poor countries does not get that work that really quite probably.
Yeah, but United States corporations are dumping grain on Mexico and Central America and South America. They're dumping grain all the time to drive the farmers off the land.
We should be subsidizing the farmers for cotton.
You know,
You
I think we should have communities, sustainable communities, which are, like as you said, Jeffersonian ideal, and I think that is possible. Of course, we have a bigger population than we did in the Revolutionary War, but I think it's still possible to have communal activity around sustainable agriculture and get people in contact with the land again, to have a certain parcel of land that they are completely in control of, and not be dependent on corporations for their food supply.
Do you think we should outlaw the combine?
The combine.
The combine.
Not for wheat.
Or the technology, not for wheat.
For tomatoes, I think it wouldn't be a very good idea.
The technology is displacing the labor.
Not for wheat.
Business has monopolized farming. I mean, it's fewer and
They can
fewer
feed the
companies
world.
that control
They
food
could feed
production.
the world out of Kansas. Well,
I have a question. Is there in your concept of democratic capitalism space for ideas of Abraham Maslow?
try and speak up if you can, please, Joe. Sorry.
If there is any space in the concept of democratic capitalism for a psychological approach that has to do with human transformation, which means transformation of the people who are decision makers in terms of self-actualization.
Maslow.
Yeah, Maslow concept. I don't know, maybe, it runs parallel to
From what I read of Maslow, not a deep study, but I think I remember finding him, in a sense, coming at the subject from a different direction, but ending up recognizing exactly I would count him among our democratic capitalism heroes.
Thank you.
No question. All right, well, all of you have a short commute. We got 50 miles, so.
Oh, long way to go before you. Thank you very much. His cards are here if you want. They got his cards with his website and a little thing and all that. You can pick them up. He left some here on the table for you, and then you can be in touch with him. Yeah. Wait a minute. Let me unplug this thing. It won't be blinding. There. Okay. Thank you. Well, ask him.
Question.